My name is Kai. I'm the co-founder of a company called One New Era Experiences.
But I think there's a lost in this storytelling, being around the campfire.
Yes, speak my language for sure. It's the time. Hey, we got this opportunity, for this video gig, and it's a small budget. Is 30K okay? So I'm like, I put my phone on hold. I was like, yep, it'll be fine. Yeah. One of the traumatic things, for example, is he would lock me in the shed in the back and just hang me up and basically for a night, and I have to pee myself and things just because of I fibbed. I know by healing my own father's relationship that I've healed a bunch of father's relationships, because now I can talk to somebody with direct experience and say, okay, yeah, whatever your dad did, let's hear it.
There's no more of those movies, I would say, that are the long, just slow. Like, you have to keep the viewer engaged, whether it's 5 seconds or an hour.
Yes.
You know what I mean? So how difficult is it to create content nowadays? And
and then you're not alone. As much as you are in the business of being alone, like this, we can just reach out to somebody and you're on a podcast.
Yeah. And really quick, someone that you look up to.
Someone I look up to, what's interesting, I'd say now it's my father.
hello, everybody. Welcome to a new podcast. My name is Jay Javola. Alongside here is my co-host Cal. Welcome to a episode of What Do You Do podcast. Today we are joined by Kai. Thank you so much, Kai, for being a part of today's podcast. Tell everybody who you are and what you do.
Well, thanks for having me on. It's exciting because I had no idea about this podcast until last week. I love that you guys are in doing this. So basically, my name is Kai. I'm the co-founder of a company called One New Era Experiences, Experiential Marketing. But like I said, one of the things I'm really exploring is this idea of just not having a label. So yes, I'm a visionary co-founder of a business, but I'm also a mentor. I'm an uncle. I'm a friend. I'm a lover. I'm just a community guy. So I'm just a lot of things. But I'd say for the most part, I'm just a business visionary.
Wow, that's awesome. Well, thank you, Kai, for coming on the pod and walk us through your life journey coming out of high school. What were some of your earlier jobs, education, and everything that you've gone through?
This is good timing because my nephew right now is turning 14, so he's going to high school next year. So I'm reliving my whole high school experience, and I realized by revisiting, I'm like, man, my high school experience, while it's great, I felt like I was kind of steered the wrong way because I was always kind of like, I should get this, I should get high marks, I should be this. And coming from a first generation family, I came here on a boat with my family. So my parents are from Vietnam. They were just like, hey, you got to be a doctor, you got to be a scientist, you got to be a lawyer. So I was never given that the possibility of being an artist. So during high school, I was trying to find myself, and actually through sports, I found basketball, and through basketball, I started finding expression. So from that, I wasn't that weird kid now. I'm a guy that played ball, and from there, met a lot of my friends, and then at that point, I was like, what are you guys doing? They're like, oh, we're taking marketing. So I just decided to go to Mohawk College, take marketing, and then. Even there, I just felt like I'm not sure. How do you guys feel during school? Do you guys feel like you guys knew where you're going, or were you kind of just kind of following the path?
I think, for me, it was kind of get out, go to school because it was social norm. It was, basically do what everything else is doing. You're going to be successful if you kind of go and that whole thing, and for me, once I got to school, I was like, man, this is not for me. I'm like, all I want to do is drink and party and hang out, and the social aspect of it really drove me. And year and a half in, I dropped out. So that was my experience with school.
Yeah, mine was, I had a huge passion for motorcycles when I was younger. At 12 years old, I always thought I was going to be like a motorcycle mechanic. And then my dad told me that, Jay, motorcycle in Canada is a 6 month out of the year career. So maybe you should be more interested in cars. And then, as I got older, of course, I got into cars, loved cars, went to apprenticeship. But then once I became an apprentice mechanic, I just fell or climbed the ladder of working in service, sales, and then now here I am, love the passion of cars. So I'll have to show you a little sports car when we leave today. And then, I've always had a passion for cars, and selling has just always been kind of my passion. So, yeah.
So both of your stories very similar to mine too. Same thing. I was kind of going through it, and all of a sudden, I knew I wanted to be creative, and then I figured getting into advertising marketing, I'd kind of start there. And luckily in Mohawk College, I was a 2-year co-op. So basically what happened was after my first year, I got placed at a place called, I think, Commercial Graphics. So it was a commercial print shop. It wasn't what the interesting thing was. Probably my first kind of reality check was, it was probably a month into the co-op. And I got there and the doors all chained up. So they went to receivership. Right. So here I am. I got 3 more months in my co-op. It's like, okay, now this company is supposed to give me my 4 years experience. They're closed up without notice. It was like, and I watched all of my peers, man, they went from having a job to no job, and all these people had kids and things. And That was a pretty sour experience. But luckily, one of the clients was a company called UPS Store, mailboxes, etc.
Hmm.
And so then they said, "Hey, come on, finish your term here." And that's kind of what started my corporate career, because when I started there, I put a suit on, and you at 21, you're making great coin, and all your friends are going to university and doing this stuff, and they're just grinding. And here I am, full time salary,
Hmm.
traveling the world, corporate dollars. But what was fascinating about that was, while I was young, I got to kind of see, what kind of like one of my mentors, maybe some of the senior leaders, like, senior executives. And I was like, I looked around, I was like, I'm not sure if this is a lifestyle I want, even though it's, the six-figure salary, it's the vacation, and it's the shares. I was like, I don't know if this is going to fulfill me. So fast forward, as I was kind of climbing the corporate ladder, I got to go to the UK, and started the whole brand up there. But even there, I was like, that itch kept on calling, calling, calling. So after I got back from my UK stint, which was about 2 years, I decided to maybe do some consulting, as people do. It's like, if you don't have a job, go consult. So I got consulting, got some really good gigs, and I landed at a company called Temper Canada, which was it's one of those gigs where the position was like VP. I was like, man, I shouldn't be applying for this. I should be VP. I'm a marketing guy, but I was like, you know what? I'm coming back from the UK. I want to try something different. I applied, and the thing that got me the job was, when I was in the interview, I was like, you know what? If I'm going to be the VP of this company, as much as you can grill me, I need to go around and talk to your team. He's like, oh, okay. And so I think because I did that, and I'm going to talk to the director of operations, the marketing person. It's like, okay, although the other people were MBAs and everything, none of the other people asked to talk to the team. I think, and over the years, I've learned that, and Cal, we've had this experience working in co-op spaces. It's really about the people. It's really about community. It's really about who you know. So as much as I can be this brilliant person or this very creative person, it's about, how do I connect that brilliance and that creativity with, like, relationships, and with people, and with just, like, just, and really getting to know people on a real level, versus just, hey, I need to know this person because they might get me somewhere. And I think over time, being who I am today, that's why I said in the beginning, is like, yes, I'm a marketing person, but I can go in the grocery store and meet, like, so many people, and some of them could be business people, some of them could be friends, whatever. But it's just that whole way of living life is just being very expansive and very open to whatever flows comes. And because of that, my life has just taken, like, for the last 3 or 4 years, it's been just it just completely has changed. And
Hmm.
so yeah, that's, so even just revisiting the background, I don't really talk about my history. So when I saw the question, I was like, oh, he's a perfect question. So I didn't go too into it. I figured I'd wait till we got to this interview
Sure.
to kind of dive into it. So that's kind of my, in a nutshell.
Yeah, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And that's, that's massive because everything today is so transactional, right? Like
Yeah.
I do this for you, I want to get something back in return, right? And to actually come from a place of like, being totally transparent, like, hey man, I just actually want to learn about you and find out, what makes you tick, what your experiences are, what your skills, abilities, and all that kind of stuff, and seeing, is there like some way for us to kind of work together and make it fruitful for both people, for all people, sort of thing. And that's something that I've learned from you, and being transparent, so
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
that's huge.
Some of the most successful people I know, I say, well, what's key to your success? And they're like, you know what? I just do life. I just live my life, and as I'm living my life, I meet a certain person or whatever, or I pick up a certain skill. Because even skill set now, like, I feel like, going back to my teenage nephew, him being 14, he can go on YouTube and learn how to play, keyboard. He can learn how to, start a business. He can learn how to code. It's up to him. Like, when I was a child, when I was that age, I mean, for me to pick up anything, I had to go to the library, get the book out, maybe get a tutor, whatever. But now with technology and devices we have, I know people keep on saying how technology is a bad thing, but I really do feel like we have to lean into it. Especially with the AI that's happening and all this stuff. And I feel like, with the stuff I've been channeling in terms of energy and all that stuff, it couples well with AI, because AI is like something that's obviously it's data mined information, but it's still missing the heart. I think the heart is the most important thing. And I think when you say what you do, it's like, well, what you do, what do you love? And those things should be synonymous. So
Hmm.
For sure.
yeah.
And you have to have passion, for
Yes.
what you do. You have to absolutely like, if you're going to be the best at it, you have to almost want to do it for free,
Yes.
and I think that's so important. And what gets lost today, like, hey, like if I put all this effort in, I'm going to get paid for it. And even something like this podcast, like just over 20 episodes, and we're doing everything for free, and it's going to take time. You're going to build it up, but it's something that's incredibly, it's a massive like learning curve for JJ and I, and then meeting all you guys and being able to find what your journey's all about, and how we can kind of share that with the world and see what their feedback is, and all that kind of stuff. So what's incredible.
The metaphor I like to use is like, like there's a couple. One is like you plant seeds. So every conversation I have, every business contact, every friend, it's a seed that's being planted, and you cultivate, you nurture it. And some seeds you need some more water. Some seeds you can back off, and all of a sudden 2 years later, oh my God, it's growing, and you had no idea. And also the idea, when I look at my life, I have a lot of boats in the water, little paper boats that I put from when I was a kid. And some of those boats, all of a sudden, like, oh, that one is floating. Okay, we should take care of that. Some other ones, they don't float too far. But I think in life, there's just so many different things you can do that are all just like they all take their own time. And I feel like if you don't rush it, you kind of stay, if you stay present to the fact that, if you raise the entire ocean, all the boats rise. Then I think it's the way I live my life. It's like I know everything. Even by doing this podcast today, by doing this podcast today and sit with you two, I feel like something's risen with the consciousness, where something's risen with the storytelling, something's risen just by sitting here sharing with two visionaries that are doing a What You Do podcast, 22 episodes in. It's fantastic.
Yeah, wow,
right?
appreciate that, guy. Thank you.
Yeah, man, I appreciate it.
Thank you. And you know what's funny too? Like coming from the sales industry, I think I almost did it wrong in that sense. Like every customer was just a customer, right? Because benefiting from the sale of it, profiting the commission from it, whatever the case is. But this podcast has really taught me in such a short time, like just how powerful. Because obviously, once we finish this podcast, we're gonna have our own separate conversation, right? And it's amazing how the relationships we've built just in these last 20, 22 people, you're so right, and I think one thing to your comment, it's like one thing that technology is absolutely going in so many right ways, but I think there's a lost in this, the networking and just having a simple conversation about either storytelling, the being around the campfire,
Yes.
kind
Oh
of life, right? So
You speak my language for sure. It's the campfire. I mean, I spend a lot of time in nature. So as much as I do like devices, and my work is around cameras and gear and everything. My greatest recharge is when I go up north. I have a friend that's opening up the resort, Hollow Valley Resort, Sean Pinnell actually.
Yeah.
And when I go up there, it's just like when you leave Markham, the 400 that area, it's just like God's country.
yeah.
So yeah, that's my recharging. So yeah, it's definitely a good balance.
It's like, I swear to God, a release. Like once you
100%.
hit that, just getting out of Toronto, you're like,
Yes.
you can relax, and just like be like, oh my God, I'm on my way to wherever, that destination is. And,
You know it.
and, but I guess to sum all that up, it's not about what you know, it's about who you know. And obviously, nurturing these relationships and making the most out of, everybody. So yeah, no, that's awesome. So so you went to that company and you started interviewing
Yeah.
the staff there
Yeah.
when they were supposed to be interviewing you,
Yeah.
and you totally flipped the script on them.
Mhm.
And then did you get the job?
Yeah, I got the job. I was there for 2 years, moved myself to London, Ontario. So I was lived in the UK for 2 years, came back, and it's like, okay, and went to Ontario for a bit. Unfortunately, when I got into the thick of it, it's like, it wasn't much different from the other corporate experiences. So at that point, I just decided to do my own thing. So I just, I think my first gig outside of the corporate stuff was just consulting for marketing and software development. So we picked up some jobs just because of my contacts, and then what's interesting was as I was kind of swimming in those waters of being a software developer, web developer guy, and I had a business partner, and we're good now. But at the time, when you're doing a startup company, you're always kind of butting heads. And I remember one time he was in California. I took a call, and he was just on me for something. I was like, you know what? I'm gonna quit and become a videographer. At the time, I had no camera, no experience, nothing. It just came through, and he's like, with what camera? I'm like, I don't know, and now we're good friends. But sometimes when you're in the heat of it, something just channels, and then. So then after that, I went and got a camera. When the DSLR first came out, I got a Canon 7D. And I started doing bar mitzvahs. I started doing birthday parties and everything. I started doing that, and all of a sudden, people were like, "Oh, you're really good at this, and can you do my event and everything?" That went from personal gigs to corporate gigs. And then when I started kind of ramping up the video side, that's when you first met me. I was doing more video stuff, and so I launched a company called True Essence Media. And actually, same thing with that. It's like, yes, I can start this company and just start going promoting marketing, but let me go. At that point, I just moved to Burlington. Let me go, and I just had a new love. So her and I just went on the weekend and shot this like Love Is video in Burlington, and just making sure we're going to key in certain locations. And after we did it, we sent it to the city. Said, hey, just if you want this, if you're interested in a new videography, here's a video link. And then about a week later, I got a call, and it's the marketing person. She's like, I love your video. We don't have anything right now, but we'll keep you in mind. So thinking, okay, I'll probably never hear this about the city again. seriously, like 2 weeks later, I'm driving. I clearly remember I driving Lakeshore around like a Guelph line. I got the call. It's like, hey, and my name's Kun at the time. Hey, we got this opportunity, for this video gig, and it's a small budget. Is 30K okay? So I'm like, I put my phone on hold. I was like, yep, it'll be fine. It was my first video gig, right?
Wow.
And it was honestly just from just doing something different because, like I said, I had a knock on the door. I was like, hey, can we do video, whatever? But I wanted to create something that was like love infused. So the video was around Valentine's Day, and we basically shot this thing. This concept was love doesn't have to be just Valentine's Day; it's every day. And the key thing with that, I wasn't just doing it for the city work. It was like, yeah, I just met this new partner, and we're just having fun, and I was picking up my camera, and I was staying playful. That's another thing that's been important too. I think lately I've been really diving into the idea that everything has to be playful. I imagine when you guys do this, it's playful. Like if you guys want to say, oh man, there's 2 guests coming, I don't want to do this, and it wouldn't come through, but it just has that playful energy, and I get that. And Cal, every time I've met you, you've always been playful, Cat. Whether it's been just personal conversations or through our business conversations, it's all about. I mean, your business is all about play, right? So
Sure.
so yeah, I see you, and I think it's a big element.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I love to play, man.
Yeah, it's crucial. It's crucial.
Yeah.
And dude, that's incredible. Oh my god.
Yeah.
30 grand was their budget.
30 grand was the first thing, and I was like, yeah, okay. And then from there, it kind of because once you start that benchmark, it kind of you kind of pick up gigs from there because you kind of just referrals and just start to deliver.
Now, how long would that project have taken?
That project took about 2.5 months, 3 months. But
Okay.
what the cool thing about the 30 grand too is because I feel like when you have that money, you don't want to just kind of take it all, right? So at that point, I hired another videographer, I hired a writer, I hired a strategist because, I think a lot of times when business owners make the crucial mistake is they try to just maximize the margin without really kind of investing in the resources to make the project happen, right? And yes, it was a 30K project, but I probably spent about 10, 12K on just my team, some resources, some extra equipment, and just over time. So, and then from there, it kind of you just took care of itself because you take care of your team. So,
Wow. Love
Yeah.
that.
yeah.
That's absolutely incredible. I say, yeah, 30 grand. That's like,
So, and then from since that, like that's now what you're doing every day, moving forward. So that was
No,
pretty-
it's been waves, man. I did that,
Wow.
and then and then the interesting thing is like because as a videographer, what happens is like, and you know this, like when you're behind the camera, you get to see people put their mask down. So whether I'm interviewing a CEO or frontline worker or a nurse or homemaker or whatever, I just get to know like I get to get behind the person because I can see how nervous they get or if they're still with the words or whatnot. And because I had all these CEOs I'm interviewing with their careers and stuff, I just became a coach all of a sudden because like before the camera started flashing red, it's like hold on a sec, what should I say? I was like, just talk about your life history, and like but then it's like because they're trying to get in their head, and
Yeah.
so a big thing I've noticed over the years is ego. I feel like there's a lot of egos involved, and as I've tried to reconcile what ego is like I do feel like in the world of business and sports, I mean, like Kobe Bryant's one of my heroes, and for Kobe to be who he was, he needed to have the ego. But if he found a way to kind of just play with it, because through Mamba mentalities, yes, you have the ego, but you also have that just that passion, that energy to just to tame that ego. Because without that, you can like look what happened to Kanye, right? Like, I mean, he just went crazy, and I think a lot of these pop stars, like Justin Bieber, at one point he went crazy because he kind of the ego took him out. And what I find for the most part when I'm in the corporate world, I'm dancing with egos, and even to this day, I'm dancing with egos. So to answer your question, yes, a lot of stuff I do video, but now we're doing a lot of strategy work. We had this, so one client reached out to us, I think they're a Fortune 500 company, said, hey, before pandemic, we used to book, a top star hotel, golf resort, and have a golf thing or charter yachts for our CEOs, but that's not gonna fly anymore. Can you guys think of something else now? So right now we're curating this theatrical dinner experience that while you're having dinner, you actually have a theater performer perform, but it's all kind of live spoken to with the people in the room. So it's all integrated with your story and what you're going through. So that's kind of where we're going to now. And that's why One New Era experiences part is probably the part we play with the most, because we're not just video. We do experiences, we do coaching, we do programs. And also lately I've been tapping into like, how can I tap into like helping the youth? Right, because God knows the youth are kind of just in the part where they need some help, support, and some light. So
Yeah. So true.
I mean, yeah, kids growing up today, like it's a whole other ball game,
Yeah.
like growing up, we were just, we're all just worried about where we're playing hockey, road hockey that night,
Right,
at
yeah.
whose house or whatever it may be. Now it's like, they're just consuming all this content. There's so much information coming in. Like, how do they filter that and actually try to experience life, like, And that's what's super scary about the youth today. And having too much influence is kind of scary, because then kids can't think their own thoughts at that point, right? They just think, oh my god, like I love this, Mr. Beast or whoever may be, and I want to be like him,
Yes.
but is that actually who they want to be? Like, is that, if they critically think like who they are and the person that they want to be, is that actually the person, or is it someone totally different, right?
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
that's pretty crazy.
Even disappointing too, like from a parent's point of view too. I think even parents growing into this technology world
Yes.
and using it as a problem fixer, like, oh, kid's getting out of line. Here's a phone. Here's a
Yes.
tablet. Please stop.
Yes.
Instead of like just dealing with the issue
Exactly.
or teaching them how to, okay, like, I understand you're upset. How can we
Yeah.
fix this, instead of just shoving technology in their face to just, because then they're always going to be looking for that dopamine. Like, I need something.
Yes. Exactly.
So, but
Yeah.
yeah, youth is important. Okay.
Well, and
100%.
the reason why it's also important too is because, like, for about 5 years, I'm not sure that you know this, but I ran a men's group, and different types of men's groups. Anyone to, like, like a small group to large. I think one of the biggest groups we had was 80 men showed up, because we had this flyer at Kelly's Bake Shop all over downtown Burlington saying, hey, men's group, come by Tuesday night, top of yoga, seventh wave yoga.
Hmm.
First session, seriously, it was like just standing room only. And second session was about 50, 60. But what I noticed about what the people came through was like they just needed a friend, man. Like all these middle-aged guys, older age guys, or they're like, I need somebody to talk to, because in my life now, I'm just so engrossed in my own family and my own career, or whatever, that I've lost like this conversation.
Hmm.
And the more and more I ran these groups, I realized that a lot of it attributed to like just them not connected to their childhood, or them thinking they could have been a certain way or should have been something, or they're programmed to be certain something, and then here they are at a 50, 60-year-old, and they didn't kind of hit that mark, so they're now kind of just like trying to make up for it, right? So they never healed that inner child. That's why I feel like it's both works. I gotta help the children as they are, but I help the children who are kind of trapped in these 50, 60-year-old 50 to 60-year-old bodies. Are like,
Hmm.
I remember I was talking to one guy, and he said, I'm at a point in my life where now I'm just counting the summers. I'm just counting how many summers I've left. It's
Hmm.
like, whoa, that's deep, but that's how he looks at life now. So
Wow.
yeah,
That's scary, man.
yeah,
Wow. How many summers do you have left? That is freaking wild.
yeah.
Okay.
It's interesting perspective, and I think that the way I'd kind of go into to talk to that gentleman was like, it's an interesting perspective, but life is about perspective. Because yeah, you can say, but I have unlimited summers, or wow, I have this summer here to really just dive in, do whatever, whether it be bucket list stuff or connecting with whoever loved ones, or connecting with self. I think self care is so important nowadays, right? So it's more like, all right, yeah, say you have one summer left, what do you do with it, right?
Mm-mm.
Rather than getting stuck in that moment, it's like, oh, I got 3 summers left, 2 summers left, 1 summer left. Like who even knows?
And just the whole aspect of mental health, and even like 2 guests ago we had Andrew Costa on, and we got deep into some conversations about COVID and the business, and trying to make it happen, and like these guys are, or even women, like they're going through it when they're starting a business. They're trying to make it, trying to pay bills. Maybe they took a loan out and they're trying from family and friends, even the bank, and they're trying to make it happen and they're struggling,
Yes.
but you can't tell anyone that you're struggling. You can't tell the person that you loan the money from that you're struggling. You're in a space that is super difficult for you, and be that vulnerable, because you're worried about being judged, or what they're going to call on the loan, or whatever it may be. And that's like the whole other side of business that people don't really see.
Yes.
And I don't know if you could speak to that about.
Yeah, for sure. You make a great point there, because I think what happens is when you're in that mode where you're kind of haven't worked on yourself, then you're quick to lash out at other people. So by you being defensive, whatever it is, or maybe your ego kind of just takes you over. It's I feel for myself, like the way I got to the point where I can tap into my own energies, because I spent hours, the whole 10,000 hours. I feel like if I spent that 10,000 hours playing basketball, I'd be Kobe Bryant. But I spent that 10,000 hours meditating, tapping to self, tapping to myself healing. I mean, when I was a kid, I had a lot of trauma with being beat, because I came from a war torn country. My dad only knew the way to beat a child was your whip and stuff. And through that, and I remember a couple summers ago before COVID, I had this vision, I need to heal this. And one of my friends, she had called and she's like, I had this vision, and I feel like you gotta go write a letter to your 9-year-old self. I was like, wow. It's like, well, how many letters I gotta write? She's like, nine. I was like, whoa. Okay, let me count of how many traumatic experience do I remember. And when I say traumatic, and I'm sure my father's okay with this because we've healed the conversation. One of the traumatic things, for example, is he would lock me in the shed in the back and just hang me up and basically until I basically for a night and I have to pee myself and things because of like I fibbed or was fighting with my brother or sister. Just stuff that where
Mm.
no child should be experiencing that. So what happened was in those moments, I basically was able to sit through like, probably a 3 week period and basically just relive that moment. So I got to the point where I almost like projected myself in that moment. It's like, hey, how did I feel when I was like that, 8-year-old tied up? How was that? How did I feel when I was forced to? There's another story was, in Vietnam, being Buddhist, there's always altars of food. I came from lunch, and our family wasn't, we weren't the richest family. So I came from lunch. I was like, man, I need a food. And so I see this table full of like grapes and peaches and things. Like, let me grab a grape. And then, so I'm having that meal. And then my dad comes, I was like, oh, did you grab that food from the altar? I was like, I had no idea. So then what he did was his way of punishment was he went to, the barn at the time. It was a grocery store, bought like 3 bags of like food, put it on the table, said, you got to eat this and can't leave until you're done eating. And you know how some parents are like, oh, you have to get, you can get off. I was there until I was like just puking, right? And so then that was one of the moments I had to go back and relive and just like. And I remember when I went back to that moment, it's almost like I can smell like what the room smelled like. I can see my mom crying in the corner. I see my dad's anger. I can feel me trembling. And I just basically sat with that time and just healed everything. Just spoke to myself and said, hey, don't worry, everything's okay. Your dad's knowing better. And I said to my dad, don't worry, he's gonna forgive you for this. Hey, to my mom, don't worry, he's gonna survive this. So it was very and again through like 9 of those moments and those are things you don't get taught, but just intuitively I just felt. And then since I've done that, my dad and I have just we're a whole new being. And I think one of the greatest things I've perhaps given my dad is like, in this lifetime I learned to heal my own lineage, but I was able to give him the chance to like heal his lineage. It's like, Dad, I've forgiven you. You don't need to say anything to me, but like I can walk with you now. So we walked and we've gone through some major healing, some stuff where I feel like you can throw anything to me now, anything. And you've heard about about the tragedy nouveau. Like all these tragedies that have gone through my life, you can throw anything, and they're water for ducks back because I've gone through like the thick of it. I've gone through like you know
Hmm.
hell and back.
Hmm.
Wow.
Wow. And I guess to speak to that, like you have to kind of look back and accept and forgive
Yes.
before we can kind of move forward, and a lot of people had really really rough childhoods and were beat and all that kind of stuff, and people block it out too. Like you almost don't remember those things because it's so traumatic for you,
Yes.
and for you to go through that and accept that your dad didn't know any better.
Yes.
He was conditioned a certain way. That's how he grew up. He probably was beat himself, and
Yes.
that's how he knew how to discipline his children. And accept that, or forgive him for doing that to you, and having that conversation. And now you guys are on a whole other level. And now you can move forward, right,
Yeah.
with him, have
Exactly.
that relationship. Otherwise, you would have kept that, built up, and maybe until the day that, if there was, if he passed or something like that, and you couldn't until that last day to be like, Dad, like, I forgive you for
Yeah.
what has happened.
Yes.
And that's huge, man. Like, and I think, anyone listening to this podcast, if gone through anything super, super tough, like, I know I, like anybody else, needs to confront those things and whatnot. And if anyone needs to chat, I'm sure Kai
I'm
will
here. Yeah.
will hook you up.
For
So
sure.
that's big, man. Really,
Well, the
really big.
beautiful thing too is like the whole idea of being one and connected is like I know by healing my own father's relationship that I've healed a bunch of fathers' relationships because now I can talk to somebody with direct experience, say, okay, yeah, whatever your dad did, let's hear it because I can just go through that lens of like be able to heal that moment versus like, oh, but my dad did this. My dad's no. Let me hear what you did because I've healed my own things, my own relationship, so that because that healing happened, I'm now supported by all that healing. So when I'm talking to someone who's fresh into or not going through the healing, I can say, like, in fact, I got a text this past weekend from a parent sibling, parent son situation, and they're just losing their crap on each other. And I was like, okay, well, I'm not going to take sides here. I just want to let you express yourselves, and from there, let's see what happens, right? So, lots, like I said, a lot of times when you're in that mode of like your ego flaring, just the rage happens. And I feel like if you can stay grounded, if you've done the work, you can ride it through. You can ride the wave out.
Hmm.
Wow.
Wow. I'm just even impressed the fact that, you're able to even talk about that too, like talk about like even if the whole world watched this podcast, let's just say, like, just how comfortable you are even to talk about that. And, a lot of people would go through the same situations that you have been, or maybe worse, or maybe not as bad, but would never talk about it or go through the whole life of, not coming to that, that realization that you need to talk about it, you need to get over it, right? Because from your point of view, like, I definitely grew up in a very fortunate household, for sure. You know what I mean? Like, my parents definitely did not use violence. They would use the art of talking, sitting you down, and just the patience. I thank my mom for that, having the patience that she did and teaching us in different ways. So, I cannot relate to you on that level, but I can definitely appreciate that how much stuff you've had to go through, and then be able to share to the world of that story. So, thank you. You are just get me all worked up, like, goddamn. I just, like, wow. Thank you.
Well, thanks for giving me the platform. Like that's why I was so excited about this. Is just, gives us a voice, and I feel like if there's anybody that's watching this and they just get inspired by any of these words, it's worth it, right? And I feel
Mhm.
like there's a lot more that's happening. I definitely feel like, and through my channels and through my downloads, I've been feeling 2024 is gonna be a big year, be a big year, in a lot of ways. And my spiritual path has given me, like, I've had visions, like I've had visions. My business partner Anthony, because we're close, and a lot of times I'll say, hey, I got this vision. This is gonna go down this day, blah 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 blah. And sure enough, it happens. And this is going down this. And then what's really been interesting is, like, we've been playing this game of, like, riding these truths and these realities out, and then at the same time you're riding these, like, different narratives of, like, all these movements happening and all these conspiracy theories and all these, like, whatnot, right? And I'm just thinking, this is an important time in our lives to use our own discernment and stay rooted in love. So no matter what is being told, there's truth in everything. If you look at left wing, right wing, whatever wing you're in, there's truth in everything. And the more truth that comes out, either people will try to squash that truth or people will support that truth. So if you're on either side, you're be labeled a certain way. And that's why, going back to, I don't like labels. You can call me whatever you want, but I know who I am. And to your point earlier, I feel like if you do spend the time and know who you are, nobody can attack you. Nobody.
Mhm.
And I feel like if I go on a religious route, and I don't feel like I'm not too religious, but I do believe in this idea of this higher power. So whether it be God, whether it be Jesus, whether it be Buddha, whether it be this almighty energy, it's that energy that kind of guides me. Because I know some of the stuff that's happened to me, it wasn't this human being that figured it out. It was like, what? How did that happen? How, and it's all just through faith and just leaping into it and trusting and just building on this idea of, like, we're loved no matter what we are. We're loved, and we can
Mm.
love. We have the capacity to love at any point in time.
Wow. Thank you. You're probably inspired. I hope there's a lot more people that listen to this podcast just to be how inspiring you are. But, I hate to get off topic of this, but let's talk about some of the things that you do in today, or some of the things that you're looking for 2024 from, like, a career point of view, like some of the jobs. I know you obviously have a media company,
Yes.
right? Like, how big is that team? What kind of jobs are you doing today with that team, and on all the other ventures that you're doing?
Awesome. Well, thanks for bringing me back to one.
Yeah, no,
Because I'd be in space for those guys.
No.
But so my main expression is a company called One New Air Experiences, and right now it's my business partner Anthony Di Domenico and myself, who I'm sure you'd love to have him as a guest, because
Yeah.
he's been at Vibe.
We're coming for you, Anthony.
For sure. And so basically, what we've done is, like, through pandemic, we had to dance. So going into it, we had about probably $500,000 worth of contracts lined up to do branding, marketing, strategy, experiential sales, sales launches, and obviously when pandemic happens, like, oh, we'll put that on hold till August. Oh, we'll put that on hold September, and all of a sudden, all that just up in smoke. So now we're at a point where now I feel like we've hit this groove because, as you said earlier, I feel like people are now starting to get together again and gather and connect and feel comfortable and being face to face. So through that, a lot of experiential stuff. For example, we're working with a restaurant called Radius. They moved from James and Hamilton to Hess Village, and I'm not sure how much you guys know about Hess Village, but it's going through a renaissance because Hess Village was known for, like, the younger underage drinking. Here comes this restaurant that's more higher end and supper club vibes. So we've been helping them with content creation. We built this actually project called the Halo Project, and what it is basically this big floating bench. Because, like, during pandemic, all around the world, like my granny in Vietnam was getting, say, 6 feet apart. Like my granny, like those living in rural Vietnam, was getting that same message. So we're told 6 feet apart. So we decided to create this like floating halo, a 6 foot diameter that encourages two people to sit in this chair, grab a photo, but then hey, share a coffee together, share a conversation, because it's all about that unity, right? So those are the kind of projects that 1X is trying to bring in, and then also we have agency partners. So you mentioned your car sales at one point. So one of our clients is Audi. So we do Audi work with we did Audi work with Audi Canada prior to during pandemic actually, and now we're doing some local content stuff with Audi Hamilton and VW Hamilton. And again, the reason why we love working with them, because the team up there, yes, it's a strategic brand, and yes, it's a luxury car and everything. But the team up there, I mean, Chris and his entire team, they're just visionaries, and they're community oriented people, and they're driven by just being connected in that way. So it makes content creation a lot easier and a lot more fun to create. So I think that's kind of where we're at right now. We're creating these, and the other thing that's kind of coming our plate now is, because I have all these engagements with all these different people, we're starting broker deals. Like people are like, hey, do you know somebody who might want to buy this business and blah blah. I was like, I don't, but I know this person. All of a sudden, boom. Well, how can we make that worthwhile for you? It's like, well, we'll figure it out, right? And again, that's the whole thing about just doing life. It's like if I say, well, it's a 2% finance fee, blah blah blah, that's like that changes. But I know that if this deal closes and this transaction happens, well, I know what the transaction is, and there might be opportunity with the new owner. There might be new opportunity with the business the legacy content of it, but just trusting that, having an experiential marketing company, experiences as we know it today is changing. I mean, the word experience is almost redefined every day. So I'd say that the thing that we pride ourselves on are three pillars: content creation, event production, and custom fabrication. So the custom fabrication is the halo. The event production is the grand opening or sales launches. And then the content creation is like, hey, if you need a video, if you need social media, if you need a legacy story, we got you. So it's all kind of intertwined. And we're kind of planning again, because for the last 3 months, we're just getting any fish we could to kind of stay afloat. But now we're at a point where, like I say, we're playing chess again. We got the pieces, and we can start making the moves.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Right. And how hard is it to, create content nowadays, to be as strategic as you have to be and start thinking differently, and, to keep consumers engaged,
Yes.
every second, right?
Yes.
I'm even seeing more and more movies, especially from Disney. Like, you don't really realize when you watch the movie, like, there's no more of those movies, I would say, that are the long, just slow. Like, you have to keep the viewer engaged, whether
Yes.
it's 5 seconds or an hour.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So how difficult is it to create content nowadays? And
Yeah, that's a great question. I feel like staying authentic to the creation process allows the content to become much more palpable and magnetic. So if I'm sitting there, hey, you got to write the script and whatever, then it doesn't go off so cleanly. So what we do is, well, a lot of times when we do the content, it's very organic. It's like, hey, are you doing this event, or are you doing this? So let us come there and kind of just capture it as it flows. And if we need to pull somebody aside, it's like, you got to do this, for the shot, then for sure. But everything we do is like non-scripted. It's life unscripted. And then from that perspective, you can now grab 10-second bites and say, oh, this could be a TikTok thing, or this could be a story. Because going back to my corporate days with working with the city and these bigger corporations, they expect a 2-minute, 3-minute videos, because if they're paying $20K, they want. I'm not paying 20, 30K for a 10-second clip, but now it's almost like you gotta almost tell them, like, yes, you're paying a certain budget, but we can give you these clips, but they're more digestible. So rather than giving you maybe 2-minute, 3-minute clip, we'll give you 3 to 4 20, 30-second clips that, to your point, grabs attention, is strong and is rooted in authenticity. So.
wow.
Okay.
And what advice would you have for businesses? Like, I mean, obviously we do all the editing, the content creation ourselves, grabbing little snippets from the podcast here and there. Like, what advice would you give to business owners or people creating content to help implement into their editing?
I'd say stay true to your game. Stay true to why you did it. I think a lot of times when people go into business and everything, after a while they kind of lose like what the origin story is. So I would say, before you even get on camera, just spend some time journaling. Like, why are you into this? Why are you doing this? Like, get into the origin of your why. And then when you start doing it, I would just say start doing it. I mean, yes, you guys have great gear, but sometimes it's like, just start with your iPhone. Start with, like, sometimes when a client's call us, it's like, you know what, you're not ready for us just yet, because you still need to kind of craft your story. So rather than wasting each other's time, just here's some kind of prompts that you can do. Origin story, who you working with, what currently makes you happy, what motivates you, kind of like what the questions you gave me. Then once we get there, then when we do start working, then the question becomes way more organic, because it's top of mind versus like, okay, well, let me just pump you up first, and then let's talk about stories. No, you're gonna come already pumped up because you've already done the work, and it's like, okay, I do this because of this, and I'm inspired by this because of this, and I'm feeling good about my life because of this. And then from there, it becomes a lot easier to capture good content.
What are the biggest challenges that you face, being in the content creation world and even just like your journey in general,
Yeah.
from start to finish, like what are the things that you've really had to overcome and
There's so many things. I mean, one is when you first get into the game, you're always like, I need to get this camera, I need to get this speaker, I need to get this light, I need to get this microphone, I need to get all this stuff. So like, just trying to say, just you have enough. Whatever you have enough. But in terms of like the actual business side of things, I would say that life, right, and especially right now in business, is that as much as you can strategize and do the 5-year plan, I'd say definitely have this idea of like, yes, have a structure, but have wiggle room, have a bandwidth so that if when you jump off the dock, it's like as much as you can get from here to here to get to the island. Know that the waves gonna take you a certain way. So just know that sometimes when you're maybe feeling a little off and when you're feeling not as motivated, just know that as long as you stay steered towards that island, or like I say, I mean, a lot of times when I post something, I'll put a star on my post because this actually came from one of the sessions we had at Crossroads. We had this dinner, and then this gentleman he was having some marital issues, and he said, we were kind of going this way for a while, and all of a sudden we said, okay, what's our North Star? And so as long as we figure out what our North Star is, then we can kind of just start going this way, right? And I think ultimately, whatever faith you're, whatever background you have, what background you are, your North Star is very similar for the most part. You want to stay, you want to stay healthy, you want to stay positive, you want to surround yourself with good inspirational people. You want to wake up, feeling motivated, and all that good stuff. And you also want to be rooted in something, a purpose of some sort, right? So yeah, I'd say that just having your North Star, being clear to that, and following that, knowing that when you go in this entrepreneurial path, and as we know, it takes you. I mean, there's undercurrents, there's waves, there's storms, all that stuff. But knowing that you got it, and then you're not alone. As much as you are in the business of being alone, like this, we can just reach out to somebody and you're on a podcast.
Yeah. I think I asked you on, what was it, Thursday or
Thursday.
Friday?
I was like, yeah, down.
I was like, is Monday too soon? Or you're like, you're such an easygoing guy, right? That
Yeah.
you're like, you know what? Yeah, let's hit it up 2:00.
Perfect.
And I really appreciate you doing this at short notice and
Great.
whatnot. And Kuhn, obviously you've been in the game for a minute, and like of everything that you've done and accomplished, like what's your highlight, your successes that you've had and whatnot, that you might be able to share with everybody?
Man, I'd say the success that I had is just my own freedom. The fact that I've gained the success by just being my own self. I mean, yes, I've given up the paycheck and everything, but I think just having the sense of just being who I am, and what's been beautiful is that being who I am. Maybe prior to pandemic, I was like, man, who's that guy talking about love and light? Who's that guy bringing love to the boardroom? But now it's like it's the very same reason why I'm going to these boardrooms and meeting with people is because of the fact that I'm saying, look, I'm here to talk about culture. I'm here to talk about how we can bring your team together and not just kind of just do as a line point. Like let's actually breathe life into this. So I think the success is just staying true to that path, and now finding success through staying that path versus having to veer off to like sell myself out to get these new opportunities. So it's basically kind of staying true to this what's being presented. And I've been so grateful from all the people met and all the journeys and all the ups and downs. Like through my life, I've had a lot of tragedies, but those tragedies have been things that have kind of just made me stronger. And because of that is in there, I know that when I go into this idea of like how to help people, there's like this energy that radiates. I feel it. And you said that off camera. It's like, and it gets validated after, because I don't go to people and say, hey, feel my energy, feel my energy. I just go to people like, yeah, what's happening? And I just stay present to whatever's happening. And sometimes it's very jovial. Sometimes like, hey, I need to double my profits next year. It's like, hey, let's jam on it. All the time it's like, I'm about to split with my wife. Let's jam on it. But by staying true and just being authentic, I just feel like just all of a sudden, like whether it be through presence, through eye gazing, through just like the conversation, just something just envelops the space, and everything just becomes much more flow, much more enjoyable, I guess.
Hmm.
It's probably crazy, just running into people and they're like, Kuhn, I gotta talk to you, like, and just
Yeah.
spill out what's going on inside of them, and
Yeah.
it probably happens, for you all the time.
You know what's crazy? It gets to the point where it happens to even strangers. I've had people now, they'll come up, and I'm like, the other week I was up in Dorset just coming back, and I just stopped at a club place, and I was wearing this one, my line, like a Lions Pride shirt, which is my men's group shirt. And this guy he comes up and goes, I know you. How did I know you? And what I'm starting to realize, like the more and more I'm knowing this, is because when you look at somebody and just that have no sense of judgment, because I'm not looking at this like, oh, you're some random person. It's like, I look at you just from space of like, I respect you, I know you, and I love you to some extent. That comfortability, that familiarity kind of comes back, and then they mistaken as, oh, I must know this guy from somewhere. And it's amazing because then that sparks a conversation. I was like, oh, then I'm invited back to these dinners in some random towns. But this actually this fall I'm going to Italy, and it's been a lifelong journey of mine. Ever since before I even knew what Italy was, I had these visions of like, hey man, there's this place, and there's like there's this canal and there's stuff, and as I've gotten older, I was like, okay, it's Italy. And so then there's a place in Italy called Assisi, and there's a Saint Francis, and so basically I want to go and just pay homage to Saint Francis at this chapel in Assisi. I know that by doing that, another seed will be planted, or one of the seeds I'd be planted a few years ago might cultivate. And that's just the whole journey of like what Saint Francis was known for is he was born to this wealthy family, and then basically he just, do you guys know much about Saint Francis?
No.
So I'll just give you a quick rundown. So he was born to this wealthy family, and he's basically said, you know what? After a while, I was like, I'm not connected to people. It's almost the story of the Prince and the Pauper. That story where the prince and he switched place with the pauper. Anyways, so San Francis started just doing things where it's like he'd go in a situation where he'd go beyond his comfort zone and he'd embarrass himself purposely just to kind of see how that felt. And through that uncomfortability, he started learning that he can start preaching and started sharing the gospel and sharing the words. And he started doing these like amazing talks to the community, and the birds come and start chirping and stuff, like just things like that are just so powerful. And I feel like you know um, again, I was raised Buddhist. I was sponsored by a Dutch Reformed church. I was married at one point to a Roman Catholic family. So I've done all the different faiths, right? So right now, what I know now is like my faith is just like believing and just staying in this frequency of love, and doing everything out of love. And from there, hey, if I feel called to go to Italy, go there and go, because my business partner is actually Italian too, Anthony. And so he's like, you go, do your thing, and we can make sure we can figure things out as you flow. And so going back to like part of my biggest win is just having the ability to have that freedom, to go. And because I feel like as much as it is it's personal a journey, I feel like a journey that I'm taking on behalf of the world in a lot of ways. It's pretty
Hmm.
powerful.
Wow. And even with, I'm sure you've done a lot of jobs, from video editing to production, all that kind of stuff. What job would you say is the most you're proud of?
Job I'm most proud of, I would say. I think the job I'm doing now, I think being the experiential, and co-founder of One New Era Experiences, because crazy enough, like this whole logo and how it came to be, it was like, I remember it was like we're just around the Nouveau days, where our co-working space where I met Cal, and that night I went back to my apartment. I was living in Berlin at the time, and I started just jamming with my business partner. He wasn't my business partner at the time, but we started jamming, and all of a sudden started sketching this logo, and sure enough, the logo became the 1X logo. And then the next day later, my brother's like, "Hey, check out this crop circle." And he hadn't seen the logo yet. The crop circle was literally that 1X logo. Like, not even kidding you. And it was almost like, whoa. It's like, so then, and since we've started that company, we went to California just before pandemic hit. And same within when in California, we just had these like really crazy anomalies and like just really amazing encounters with people. And it's like, okay, the path we're on is the right path. So I'd say the thing I'm most proud of right now is the fact that presently where I'm today, I'm happy. I'm stoked. I got some really great people around me, and we got a great platform. I think and like I said, 2024 is a big year for us to evolve, and I feel like we've been all kind of in this like mix of whatever the last few years was. But I think we're all kind of coming up and finding our own expression, finding our own voice, and I think it's very exciting time to be alive. So I'd say just being alive now is probably my greatest achievement.
Well, Kai, thank you so much. Oh, apologize.
Yeah, sorry, you gotta show the logo.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry, the tattoo to
Yeah.
camera there. When he came in, I was like, "Oh, One New Era, it's sick, man! You got a tag
Yeah,
on there."
I love it.
It was the last day in California, actually. I went and just got it, and it's time. So.
Dude, so cool,
That's so cool.
unreal.
We'd love to keep talking, Kai. Unfortunately, all great podcasts must come to an end. But one thing we love to ask every guest: if you could give yourself 20-year-old advice, what would it be?
If I give so it's interesting because the people's like, oh, just believe in yourself and all this. I say just everything's gonna be all right. Everything's gonna be all right. Because in fact, I did that. I went back to my 20-year-old self, 19-year-old self, like everything's gonna be okay. No matter how crazy things are be fine. And like I'm sure all of us have gone through some crazy waves in our own lifetime. And the fact that we're here sitting here and sharing and talking, I think that's proof that as much as the storm's gonna hit you, the sun comes out and you stay rooted in love and you're good. So I'd say everything's gonna be all right.
That's great. And what goals do you have for the next 5 to 10 years?
My goal is to continue kind of spreading this light, become a beacon, to start sharpening the sword that I keep saying. Like, I mean, I feel like as I'm practicing this corporate play and this building a business, also my spiritual path, I feel like I'm like a samurai. I'm trying to figure out the technique and everything. So I feel like 5 years from now, I might be master samurai, and who knows? I'll come back and we'll see where we're at. And when I say samurai, it's more like the wisdom. It's more the precise movement of whatever your practice is. So yeah, I'd say 5 years from now, I'd love to kind of just hit that point where I've mastered some of these principles and philosophies that have entered my realm, and see what happens.
Sure. And really quick, someone that you look up to.
Someone I look up to, you know, what's interesting. I'd say now it's my father. You know, I have to say it's my father because the fact that he was brought to light with some of these things, and now that we're in this mode where we've completely healed. I mean, it took a big man to take that on, and so I'd say he's someone to heal to. And the other answer I'd say, Kobe Bryant.
Yeah. Yeah. Legend.
He's a legend for sure. So
Yeah, and if anybody wants to reach out to you, have a chat. You're a super open guy.
yeah, of course.
Really easygoing, all that kind of stuff. And I mean, what are some things that if they have something going on, they can reach out to you?
Sure,
What are some of those things that?
Well, one thing is I'm actually going to probably do my own kind of podcast content down the road through One New Era X. But for now, I'd say the best way to connect with me is through my handle at Kaizen, KHYZEN 369, and or my email, kun@onenewerax.com, or Kai, KHY at onenewerax.com. So yeah, that's the best way to reach out to me. And
Awesome.
yeah.
Awesome. If anyone needs any experiential marketing, video work, definitely reach out to
Sure.
Kai and Anthony at One New X Era. And really, really pumped to see you, the future for you and you guys, like it's gonna be awesome, man.
Yeah,
So,
and I want to say just on camera here, like I'm really pumped for you guys. Like I said, like just sometimes so many people talk about podcasts or doing whatever it is, and the fact that you guys are doing it and you guys are here, and obviously I've seen your path, and continue doing what you do, and I feel like I can't wait to get caught up on the episodes because, like I said, I didn't know how fresh this was. So
Yeah, well, I feel bad for the first 15, but you know what? And it's funny too because from your point earlier, and I realized what I wanted to say earlier.
Sure.
When you were talking about when you just have a phone, just hit record. Or if you don't have a mic, use the mic on your phone. Whatever the case is, like the equipment is, not the main issue.
Yeah.
The main issue is just to actually hit the button and start
Exactly.
talking, right? And that was one thing that Cal and I really paid attention to, and Cal and I were shitting our pants for the first 2 episodes, maybe in the first 5 episodes, right? But it's funny because like we didn't have the sign here, camera quality was absolutely terrible. Just learning this equipment, like I come from a world of talking, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like understanding this stuff is a whole new understanding, right? And that was one thing that I told Cal, I was like, we just need to hit record.
Yes.
We will upgrade as we go.
Yes.
And you'll see, actually, I'm sure even just, the editing, the audio from this point to this podcast, when you listen to yourself, you'll definitely appreciate the fact that we just hit record,
Well, the thing is, the one thing that I really love about that is this idea of iterations, right? Like you got to iterate, you got to keep iterating, and I feel like again, going back to my most successful friends, like they just jumped off the dock and they just started swimming and started iterating. It's like at one point, it's like, hey, I got to do a breaststroke. Sometimes I got to do a backflip. I'm getting tired. I got to do this. Sometimes I call a raft over, right? There's ways to do things, and I feel like that so many people, if you do it and you get it out there, then you can add the sign, you can get these slick sure microphones, all that stuff, right?
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
just keep iterating. So, and I look forward to seeing what episode 100 looks like, or
Yeah.
however what goals you guys have and where you guys going to with this. So,
It's true. Wow, Kai, thank you so much for being part of today's podcast. Thank you. And to everyone who's listening, I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you did, please hit that like button and don't forget to hit subscribe so you don't miss out on any future content. And we will be sure to catch you in the next episode. See you guys.
Jesus, man,
Oh,
great
it's
job.
great.
Oh my god,
Thank you.
dude.
It just keeps getting better.
Oh my god. I just
and man, you guys made me feel comfortable too. Like,